Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this new Tallest Man on Earth album, I Love You, It's a Fever Dream. The Tallest Man on Earth is the pseudonym of Mr. Kristian Mattsson, Swedish indie folk star who, for years, was literally one of my favorite things going on in modern folk. Now, in my older years, I did feel like, at the time, I had kind of lost my ear for a more stripped-down classic approach to folk and folk rock. But Kristian's music from the start of his career just warmed my heart. His 2008 debut, Shallow Grave, what a wonderful debut. His performances here are larger than life and seriously emotional. It's tender, it's well written, there honestly really isn't a bad tune in sight. And his next album, The Wild Hunt, is honestly even better. It's just as classy, emotional, and wonderfully performed, but interestingly enough, it showed Kristian working with a couple of more hooks. But I started to sour on Kristian's sound around 2012, and his There's No Leaving Now album. This album on paper to me had a lot of the same qualities. But I just feel like his heart wasn't nearly as into this, and his performances weren't nearly as flooring. I mean, I didn't really mind 2015's Dark Bird Is Home. It did show Kristian working in not as much of a stripped-down fashion, and showed him working with some more lavish instrumentals. But it is a lovely album at times, and Kristian's performances are pretty sweet as well. Now these new singles, I can't help but be impressed slightly with them, but overall, I kind of had a bad feeling going into this album. Let's chat about it. It's sad to say on this album, but really Kristian sounds like an absolute shadow of his former self. Take for example this album's intro, Hotel Bar. It's certainly a very whimsical and sweet start, I can't complain about that. I don't want to be that guy though, I just feel like Kristian isn't giving it his all here. His vocals, compared to where they were years ago, have become completely emotionless at times. I can't completely despise this track because there is a certain elegance to this that I actually really enjoy. And I do like the sort of hopeful cry to arms that this track becomes towards its finale. As a matter of fact, I'll go on record by saying lyrically, this is gold, but I just feel like Kristian doesn't have his heart in it. I feel like I have a lot of the same thoughts on a lot of tracks here. Take, for example, My Dear. From a distance, this doesn't sound that bad. I do sort of actually really like the more stripped-down vibe here. But oh my lord, what happened to his vocals here? They are so flimsy. This is not even sounding like Kristian here. Here, I do sort of get the impression that Kristian's heart is in the right place. But this performance is just very limp, to say the least. I'm trying to, be pretty kind about this album. I am trying to find things to this album that I enjoy, but then we have tracks like Waiting for My Ghost, which rear their ugly head and just put me in an awful mood. This is a stripped down and emotional track for sure. But I don't remember Kristian ever coming off so incredibly sappy in his music. He sounds absolutely miserable and not into this at all. Once again, I can't help but point out this track lyrically is stunning. As far as his writing goes, nothing has calmed down at all. But this just isn't the same Tallest Man on Earth. As a matter of fact, he still comes off like a shell of his former self. If you want to argue, I could still say that this is probably above average for modern indie folk standards, but I just don't feel like it's a great Tallest Man on Earth song. When it comes to All I Can Keep Is Now, once again, it's all right. I do like the sort of carefree vibe on this track. I think that's pretty sweet. But once again, I just get the feeling that he's really not that into this. The pacing here is very awkward, and lyrically, this is bottom of the barrel for the album. This is abysmal. I just can't help but feeling like I'm missing something huge. I mean, I am, honestly. This entire album is missing a purpose, and that's sad. However, we do get a handful of tracks here which I actually don't think are that bad. Maybe not exactly what we expected to hear from Kristian, but certainly not bad. Take, for example, The Running Styles of New York early on in the album. To call this one a bad folk song would just be a lie. Once again, though, I do sort of just feel like this is an average The Tallest Man on Earth track. But I do think as far as the rest of the material on this album goes, this is much better. I love the very bustling, busy instrumental that's actually kind of foreign to Kristian. I think that's pretty cool. And this actually is one of his most emotional performances here. I do still pine for his more stripped back classic sound as far as folk music goes, but this is honestly one of the best tracks here. There's a Girl is very pleasant, very airy. Not to mention here, we get a stripped down sound, very pleasant to hear. Once again, this track is actually seriously emotional, and some of these vocals here are literally some of his most heartfelt and emotional in years. Honestly, this is the sound of where he should be in his career right now. And I'll be real with you guys, I think I'm a Stranger Now is the best track here, and I actually love this song. It's weird, like on paper I really shouldn't. It's very polished, it has this very lavish instrumental. Here I am, pining for the days of this more stripped down tunes from the tallest man on earth, but this track is just hitting home so hard. Like his performance here, bravo, this is incredible. It's heartfelt, it's anthemic, probably about 100 other things too. It's wonderful. Like if we got this for an entire album, I would not be pissed. And I'll Be a Sky late in the album actually makes me really sad. Mostly because this one really takes me back and just reminds me of everything that Kristian made me feel at one point or another. It's just so dainty, so rustic, and oh my god, his vocals here are impeccable. As a matter of fact, these might be his best vocals here. They actually bring a tear to my eye. And lyrically, it stands up too. As a matter of fact, as far as a modern sound for him goes, this would be really perfect. But the rest of this album is just very alright at best, and this album overall just is not what I wanted to hear at all from Kristian. From a distance, what I've been kicking around sounds pretty good on paper. It's stripped down, it's a very retro sounding track, his vocals are on point. In a lot of ways, I feel like if this track landed on one of his early albums, this would have worked. But I hate to say it, but this track ends up coming off like a cover. There was a passion, an urgency to his early material that made it just such an amazing thing. But this just kind of sounds like it should have been thrown on a compilation, not like a comeback album. And the finale, the title track, I Love You, It's a Fever Dream. Ugh. Once again, I think that it sounds pretty nice from a distance. For the more lavish tunes here, I actually think it has some nice elements to it. But this is just so uninspired, and why? It's not like he doesn't have it in him still. We've seen it in tracks on here. It's just not coming to him as easily. So this is not a very good Tallest Man on Earth album. I actually think it's probably his worst. There are some great moments here. Lyrically, he still stands up as one of the best folk singers out there. His vocals, when they're on, they're on. And when he strips down things a little bit, he really still has his sound intact. But most of this album is completely uninspired and completely emotionless. Things that I really once looked towards Kristian for in a big way. I'm feeling a light 6 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. Until next time, have a great day, guys.